What's an industry hack your customers aren't supposed to know about? Story 1. When I worked as a pharmacy tech, I spent a lot of time calling insurance companies and waiting on hold while the world burned around me. One time, I got impatient with the voice recognition bot because it kept hearing background noise and made selections impossible, so I started cursing it out. Turns out that if you say the F word a few times in a short span, the bot recognizes you as an angry customer and will switch you to a representative real quick. I did this multiple times to a lot of strange looks from my coworkers until I explained the hack. My mom did this out of complete frustration, not knowing it would work. She does it whenever she's tired of trying to navigate automated menus that don't help. You can also interrupt the automated voice by repeatedly saying representative or customer service to get out of the automated menu and in the queue to speak with someone. I make calls to insurance agencies every day as part of my job. Many of them will simply not connect you to a representative until you jump through their hoops, if at all. Some will say that is not a valid option when you say representative or customer service. Some will say they need more info before they can connect you. Some will give you 3 tries and then hang up. And some simply will never connect you to a live person. You can leave a voicemail and maybe if they feel like it, they'll call back. Once I was on the phone with my psychiatrist's office. They were closed and opened within 30 minutes, so I was redirected to their voicemail. As I was leaving my voicemail, I started screaming and cussing because my boyfriend almost got hit by a car. Instantaneously, I was transferred to a live person who answered my phone call. This is magic. Story 2. Consulting. We don't know either. I'd say that's true for generalist consultants, but technical specialist consultants have such specific and technical knowledge that you're getting what you pay for. But you do pay a lot because those people know their worth. I'm an aviation consultant. 30% of my job is analyzing airports to tiny details. 30% of my job is facilitating conversations between airport stakeholders, and 20% of my job is taking everything I learned at various airports and seeing if it sticks when applied to current problems at the current airport. Edit. 10% is understanding concepts and solutions lower-level workers have that could be promising and helping raise that at higher, more influential areas. And 10% is genuine innovation to provide bespoke solutions from experience and knowledge of regulatory environment and operational experience. The thing is, airport stakeholders rarely have detailed experience of the industry outside their own niche problems. Understanding in detail how others have managed similar issues is absolute gold. I design very specialized traffic signals and do very detailed safety analyses. If you're building a new development and want to head off major traffic/PED problems before it gets built, I can do that for a relatively small chunk of change compared to your huge development. You'd be surprised, or maybe not, how many developers just say it's not necessary or just the least expensive, impactful option. They usually end up hiring us at double the rate at the end, when their project is massively screwed up and traffic is a nightmare. Just this week, I've had to bail out a developer who didn't think to hire a contractor to actually build their signal and PED improvements. We told them when we scoped it that we could handle the bidding and construction phase services, but nah, they know some guys. This'll pay for a nice Christmas vacation for me and the missus. As a former inspector, I hate most consultants with a passion. 99% of them had no idea what they were talking about, which led to their clients getting tickets or warning notices, which led to a lot of shouting, cursing, and problems in general from both of them. Or they often regurgitated old/outdated information that hasn't been relevant for like 10+ years. Yet, somehow it ends up being my fault for not letting them know that the rules/regs have changed. That's literally your job. Most of these regs are available to the public and/or even mentioned on existing and current permits, so there's no excuse. Fun story, I just graduated from college as an engineer and got my first job. It was insane how trusting people were of your skill and knowledge. Everyone in the company just blindly assumed I knew everything and could solve all problems. I never proved it, never earned it. The trust was just blindly given, like a borderline mental illness level of trust. Like you're not right in the head to be doing this, and it was the whole company doing it. Over a decade later, it never changed. But I do now have the skill and knowledge to actually back it up. It just took a while. Consulting is such a crazy gig for me. You folks walk into new and foreign situations over and over again, and everyone just expects gurus and miracles to happen. And I'm your head. It's just Please don't fix this up. Please don't fix this up. What the heck are you going on right now? What are they even talking about? Gah! And then you listen and take some notes and start making some very rational suggestions while the client just nods affirmingly while under their breath they whisper, "That's exactly what I've been telling everybody." Story 3. Lean into the bite. I work in pediatrics and we're taught that if a child bites you, lean into it. Push whatever part of you they're biting further into their mouth because their automatic reaction will be to open their mouth and the risk of them breaking your skin is greatly diminished. Source: I was just bitten at work. I do this to my brother's dog. She is a Great Dane/Mastiff and loves to mouth on your arm when she wants attention and to play. I shove my arm further into her mouth and the dog's like, "No, not like that." As someone who is professionally trained in restraints, I wholeheartedly agree with this advice and would like to add, absolutely find a way to stabilize the biter's head. Place your hand in the back of their head and hold. And if you can, while you are pushing into their jaw, rotate the bit limb in a downward motion as to unlock the jaw. This course of action is not always possible or plausible, variability between biter/victim, but it is worth mentioning it can be safely implemented. Our first instinct is to defuse or pull away, but for individuals finding themselves in this situation, physically prepare yourself. Stance, balance, leverage, and expect to be holding, restraining the biter until proper backup or support arrives. Usually quick, but never as fast as we want or need. Stay safe, y'all. Thank you for this advice. Story 4. Any Marriott booking made partially with points with a 3-day cancellation policy can be canceled the same day of the booking without any fees. Seeing there are many Marriott users here, if you're using a free night award, make sure you're using the closest one in value to the reservation's cost. It's awful to see 85k points FNA wasted on bookings worth 25k points. Kind of unethical, but all calls to Marriott hotels go to the same call centers. If you're in a hurry for any matter, just select New Reservation and your call will be prioritized in the queue. The guys at the call centers cannot transfer you to the front desk. You'll need to go through the menu to hear the option. Even though Expedia, Booking.com, Hotels.com, etc. offer discounts, it's worth it to book directly from Marriott, as you'll have support via phone and you can get discounts for being a AAA member, a senior citizen over 62, or a government employee. Avoid the Marriott Vacation Club promotion, it's just timeshares and you'll need to attend an awful presentation. You can brighten a call center worker's day. Say yes to any promotion that involves transferring at the end of the call. He'll get a reward, and you can hang up as soon as he transfers you. I've had 2 cut-rate vacations and got 200,000 Bonvoy points for patiently listening to their presentation and saying, "No thank you, this doesn't match my needs," at the end of it. I am working on a 3rd, and I believe I will finally go at it. You need to make sure you will absolutely say no at the end, and if you are enticed by the product, you will get a much better deal on the secondary market. Same, I do about 3 to 4 of these a year between Marriott, Wyndham, and Hilton. $99 is usually the sweet spot, when they usually start at $249 to $199 plus bargaining for more points or cash. Highly would not recommend it for those who can't push back against strong sales pitches or cave easily. I've found they aren't overly pushy, more so psychological these days. Story 5. Sometimes teachers just pull grades out of their ass. I only got through high school because my teachers liked me. They can give you any grade they want within reason. It never pays to be an a-hole. I TA'd a course with a student who plagiarized some answers. He whined and moaned to the professor that it was a cultural difference and he didn't know that copying answers weren't allowed in the US education system, despite the fact that he has to complete an online module stating that every semester, which I pointed out. Ask the guy to explain to me how he would derive the answer since he claims total understanding. Cusses at me instead, calls me a B among other things, curses Allah, both professor and student are Muslim, professor is visibly upset, etc. The guy gets a warning from the professor, copies again but carefully rewards his answers, still getting 100s on homework assignments and Ds and Fs on quizzes/exams. I absolutely took some liberty in grading his final to ensure an F. He had a D, and have 0 regrets. If he wasn't such a tool, I would have shrugged or tried to help him study prior to the exam. The kid wrote me a bunch of nasty emails after that. I tell my students that every time they're polite, respectful, and reasonable, it's like putting a quarter in their piggy bank. One day, they might make a bad decision and need to break open that piggy bank for a favor. Nothing in there? Sucks to be you. Full of quarters? I'll let it slide. You just gotta have at least one redeemable quality. Some people don't even have that. In college, I was a terrible student, like never studying at all. But I would go to class and complete all of the assignments by any means necessary. I was in a liberal arts program, so I basically just had to write op-ed papers, and I completely and utterly BS'd my way through all of them. Literally on one art history paper, I decided to cram as many Magic the Gathering terms into it as I could for fun, and I passed. Another time, I had a book report, and all I read was the summary on the back page and flipped to random spots for quotes. I got a D on the paper, with the TA's only remark at the end being, "Okay, it was clear you didn't read the book." Success. So my advice, other than don't go to college for a crap degree, is to simply show up. It's way more than half the battle. I had 2 students who were failing my Algebra 2 class. They skipped class a lot. In my district, you had to pass Algebra 2 with a C to graduate. One of them told me that he hated math because I made him feel dumb. I told them that they had to come to class, but I would help them through it. They both passed with C's. I ran into one of them this year, 10 years later. He asked me if he could hug me and told me I saved him. He has a good job and is doing really well. I see the other occasionally too. He always thanks me for helping him graduate. I love math, but not everyone needs Algebra 2. There was a time I had a family emergency, so I couldn't go to school for 2 weeks. So I was really behind. Teachers knew I don't BS like that, so one of them straight up asked me on a test what I think I would get. I actually liked this subject, so I said maybe an A-, the lowest, and she marked it right in front of my eyes. It was also her first year, so maybe she had a lot to learn herself, but I definitely didn't tell anyone. Story 6. Hospital bills are negotiable, to a degree. Always ask for an itemized bill and put some effort into analyzing it. Most hospitals will take pennies on the dollar if you pay what you are offering right that moment. They will. Nearly take all payment plans too. If you are insured, know your insurance rules. Most do not allow balance billing, meaning what your EOB says is your responsibility is all you are obligated to pay, not a penny more. If the medical people keep billing higher, call your insurance company and tell them. They can and will often straighten it out for you. It's truly awful that this is even the way that it works. You get sick and you're also supposed to know the insurance company policy or hospital billing tricks to avoid getting shafted. It's even more frustrating when you get into the logic behind why things are approved or denied by insurance. The insurance companies use clinical policy bulletins, which are basically a document of criteria outlining what they consider medically necessary and the criteria governing coverage. The CPB found on my insurance company's website outlines the treatments that it considers coverable based on the diagnosis code. So when you get denied for a treatment, i.e. MRI, they may deny that unless you have already done 6 weeks of physical therapy. If you go to get an MRI and haven't been seen by the requesting provider within the previous 90 days, you will be denied. Then, you find out that insurance does not approve or deny any treatment received in the emergency room. So wait 4 weeks for an MRI to be denied, or just go to the emergency room. Screw US healthcare. As a patient, you shouldn't need to know this crap, but I feel like it's intentionally more complicated and convoluted than it needs to be. We are squeezed from every freaking direction and denied at every possible opportunity. I wish I had done this. I was billed $8,000 between me and my newborn for a normal delivery. I didn't hit my deductible, so I had to pay everything out of pocket. And there were no details of what all the charges were, just a vague invoice for hospital stay and services. I paid it all without question because that is what I was taught to do. I regret not asking for an itemized bill. I really hope in the future itemized hospital bills are required by law up front, not something people have to shake down the hospital administration for. It's psychologically traumatizing after someone has just come out of the hospital for whatever reason. I just wanted to focus on raising and enjoying my new baby, not fighting insurance. This has not been my experience. The hospital admin threatened to come after me for payment of $31,000. They even inquired about my savings and 401k. After reviewing the bill, I discovered they didn't process it correctly with insurance. That brought the total down to $6,000. When I asked about a payment plan, they said they offered me a 3-month time period to pay it off. I paid it in full to never deal with them again. They do not negotiate. They will correct mistakes, but they never negotiate. They barely do their job of billing insurance, so I'm not sure how anyone is able to negotiate a bill. In fact, I've heard of them threatening to put a lien against people's homes for medical payment. Welcome to the US. Story 7. Not sure if your homeowner's insurance will cover something? Apply this one simple rule. Was the damage caused by a sudden and one-time occurrence? If the answer is yes, 99% of the time, you're covered. If the answer is no, 99% of the time, you're not covered. This advice applies to the US. And might I add from my own experience, don't call the claims line at the insurance company. I was calling to see if I needed to file a claim and if I was covered, and it was considered a claim. Had 2 of those, both resulting in no payout, and was dropped by my homeowners. Call your agent, not the insurance company. Yep, 2 friends who are agents for different companies. Even if it is not a claim and just a question, that crap is in your file forever, and the insurance company will 100% follow all your social media posts for years if they think you lied to them about a claim. My friend told me about a guy who wrecked his car while racing on a track, sideswiped the wall or guardrail, which isn't covered. He claimed it happened when he fell asleep on the highway or something similar. Several years later, believe my agent said 7 years, but don't remember exactly, he posted a picture on his Facebook page of his car at the track with the damage. They immediately sued him for all the money back. It ruined him. If you're going to lie about a claim, take that to the grave. This one is right here. My wife recently sold her house after hacking through fallen through offers and last-minute walkaways. We'd remodeled extensively inside but hadn't given a thought to the roof. Turns out freak hailstorm damage from like 8 years ago is absolutely covered. She closed out yesterday. I used to know a guy with a roofing business whose entire business model was offering an inspection and then getting your insurance company to buy you a roof. Turns out that over the lifetime of a roof, there's almost always some kind of storm damage. The insurance claims weren't super profitable for him, but if the homeowner wasn't having to buy a roof, they were more likely to go for upgrades, which is where he made the actual money. Story 8. I worked at a restaurant, and one time, the chef burned the applesauce that was supposed to be served with the pork chop. He put it on the menu as smoked applesauce, and people loved it. No fair, I wanted to be the restaurant industry hack. Mine was just to be exceptionally nice and you'll get free crap sometimes. I also don't think there's a bartender on earth who won't see you tip extremely well and knock drinks off your tab. The assumption is you will still pay at least a fraction of the drink in the form of a tip. You give me a $4 beer for free, I'm adding at least $3 on the tip. Everyone wins, but the house. I'm a cook, and anytime I or the server messes up an order, I almost always give out what's been messed up for free to whoever wants it as long as that customer hasn't been a B or an a-hole. But I can say without a doubt, as long as folks are nice and don't give bad attitude, act entitled, or run a server ragged, then we'll usually do our customers a solid. But if we do you a solid and you leave a crappy tip or no tip for my servers, we will most definitely remember you, and the next time you come in, we'll make sure that you get charged for every little item we can possibly charge for, and total your bill the most expensive way possible as well. And if you don't have the money to leave a tip, then you should get your food to go, order online, or maybe wait and come on a different day. I used to go to my usual bars that I would drink at, and hand the bartender some cash, saying that was theirs/their tip. If I could drink all night, and as long as I drank basically draft beer with an occasional shot, I got pretty much as many drinks as I could drink. It just always had to be from somewhere that it was hard to measure the amount of drinks that had been served and the amount that was left to be served. Basically, wherever it was difficult to account for every drink. Story 9. Our physical presence/approach toward the user will sometimes fix the problem they are facing without any additional effort. IT support. Almost 20 years in the help desk industry have taught me that 49% of problems will fix themselves when I arrive. 49% of the problems fix themselves after a reboot, and 2% of the problems actually require my services. Also, if you minimize your Outlook and then call me to tell me that your email is missing, you should maybe consider retiring. Not in IT, but I'm the manager who gets called to fix all the technical issues at my place of work, since we don't have IT on site. I walk up to it and it simply fixes itself 90% of the time. 9% of the time, I turn it off and back on and voila, it's fixed. 1% of the time, have I had to actually fix anything that has since gotten me labeled as the one to call for any problems. I've long wondered whether this was due to them subconsciously doing things the right way in the software when you show up, rather than the hacky BS Becky in accounts payable taught her, because there's been more than a few times where I'd say, WTF, why are you doing it that way? And it turns out some numpty that got fired from there 7 years ago taught her coworkers that way. And it has since propagated to every new hire ever since. Story 10. When I worked in a hotel as a night porter, the room cost was totally reliant if you were a dick or not. I obviously couldn't just give rooms away, but I could pretty much knock off 50%. One day, a very tired woman came in with her baby and I couldn't get the payment to go through at all. So I did give it to her for nothing. I just had to make sure that she was out before 9 a.m. and I cleaned it myself. Thank you for all the upvotes awards and kind words. That's very kind of you. It must depend heavily on the hotel. I once walked into a hotel late and asked how many rooms were there. It was more than I wanted to pay. I went outside and looked at Priceline, booked it online for much cheaper, and then walked right back inside with a reservation. The hotel used to have a massive sign that said rooms for €99. Some guy came in and the only available rooms were around $125. It was summer, so still a good price for a mid-level hotel at the last minute. If he wasn't such an idiot, he would have gotten the room for $59, but as soon as he opened his mouth, it wasn't happening. He demanded a room for €99 and didn't understand the 99 part. Story 11. When a car salesman offers you a premium car care package, don't buy it. It's a scam. Say you're buying a new car and I offer you the premium care car package. It'll only cost you X amount of money per month, but every time you come to the dealership, you get premium car wash, we hose it down, not a proper car wash, interior detailing and rejuvenation, we use compressed air to make the dust go away, sometimes a man uses a wet paper towel, functions check, and clock synchronization. Check if all the lights work, heater and AC work, and set up the clock if it's wrong. Summer and winter inspections and free wiper fluid refills are only done once per season. Check tire tread, visually check tire pressure, look at temperature gauge to make sure car isn't overheating, and add water in the summer, tiny amount of wiper fluid in the winter, visually inspect brake discs to see if they are not scratched by worn-out brake pads, assistance when you are on the move. You call us and then we can call a tow truck for you at your expense, only possible during business hours. Basically, we charge for simple things that you can do yourself. Also, if a car dealership sells you a used car and they told you it has been fully serviced, take it to your local mechanic and have it serviced properly. My dad taught me to always bring a potential new car to my own mechanic for a checkup before making a purchase. If they don't want to let you do that, then you walk. I've done this 3 times now, and not once has a dealership ever had an issue with it. One even let me keep the car overnight, since I couldn't get an appointment until the next day. The modern age is making this difficult. In the US, large dealers will tell me it can be returned, so I should do the pre-purchase inspection, PPI, after I buy it. Insane, but I've had to walk away from several cars. Finally bought one from a small dealer who let me drive it for a week. If they tell you that the used car is fully serviced, walk out to the lot and ask them to remove the cabin air filter right in front of you. I've yet to buy a used car from a dealership where the cabin air filter wasn't disgusting. And fully serviced should include changing that. Yes, I told my husband I wanted a little used car to just junk around in sometimes. Also, I wanted to do the deal myself. It was one of those cars that they guarantee. I forgot what they call it. I took the paper that had all the check marks on it and looked at all of them. The battery had so much corrosion on it, there was no way I wasn't going to make them give me a new battery, which they did. I then proceeded to pull out the cabin air filter myself, and I think a whole tree of leaves came out. My son is a service manager, so he told me what to look for. I got a great deal. Story 12. Most industries have retention teams because it costs 10 times more to get a new customer than it costs to keep one that you have. So if you call up and complain or threaten to cancel every other time they raise your rates, they'll probably give you the introductory rate. Just be aware you might have to switch. That last part is important. If you really want to go through the negotiation process, you have to keep your word when you threaten cancellation. Those retention teams listen to customers like that all day long. They're specifically trained to use tactics to keep you. So if you end the conversation in the same contract and don't walk away when you say you'll walk, That retention person won. I've switched once before, and there's a big note on my file that I will switch again. I always go to retention. Some dealers are always pushing a great deal either at my wife's school or at my work. I call up my carrier and ask if they can match it. I almost always get it. One time I did have to switch, and I did. When asked why I switched, I told them. In Canada, it's pretty hard, since there are only 4 companies, but a good threat works wonders. And not being an a-hole. I had a competing ISP come to my door and offer me what was frankly a crazy good deal here in Canada. So I said thanks, I'll be in touch, then called my existing ISP and told them what was up. It took a little while, and I had to repeat, "No, that's not good enough, please cancel my service," about 10 times. But in the end, I got a roughly equivalent deal. Slightly better in some ways, slightly worse in others, from my existing ISP without needing to switch. Now I don't really care one way or the other and was completely willing to switch, which is important. But it is a minor pain in the ass to switch stuff, and not doing it was a bonus. Story 13. If you're nice to my receptionist, I will find a way to squeeze you into my schedule. If you're a B, then you can have whatever the next available appointment is. If you make the office staff cry, you get a certified letter firing you from the practice. A long time ago, a lady I knew was the assistant to the prez of a mid-sized regional pest control company. There was one persistent salesperson trying to get the company onto its products. He was a really good salesman, had good products and good prices, and knew how to schmooze the bosses. But he didn't treat the assistant or the receptionist with respect. One day, the salesman walked out of a meeting with the prez thinking he had just signed a major deal. My friend, the assistant to the prez, saw him walk out. She didn't know he was there, but as soon as he walked out, the assistant walked into the prez's office and said, "That's the guy I was telling you about." Prez marched out of his office, caught up to the guy, told him the deal was off, not to come back, don't even think about treating his assistant that way. See, and then called the guy's boss, just to make sure his boss knew why the deal was off. You're better off thinking the assistant/receptionist is the VP in charge of first impressions. Don't know what exactly the guy did, but his mistreatment of the assistant screwed him. It's important to remember that someone's title may not indicate how much influence they have in an organization. This is relevant both to customers and to coworkers. That secretary that has been there for 40 years may not have a lot of power on paper, but may have the ears of everyone important in the company and may have more actual influence than the first line manager that is their boss on paper. I was the front desk/office manager for a cosmetic derm private practice. If you were nice to me and treated me well, I bent over backward to fit you in and give you an appointment that worked with your schedule, even if that meant that we as staff had to stay a bit later. If you were a POS and were consistently rude and disrespectful, I did the absolute bare minimum to fit you in. And if the day you wanted was full, oh well, too bad. The next day we have that fits your schedule is in 2 or 3 weeks. Story 14. This was 6 or 7 years ago, so may not be relevant, but when I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, the higher-ups were so tunnel-visioned on positive customer reviews that if there was any problem at all, we would write off anything from gas to whole days of rent. We had a few repeat customers that would catch on and habitually complain about dumb crap to get parts of the bill discounted. Only a rating of completely satisfied counted, and it was tied to bonuses and promotion, so a huge incentive to make people happy. Worked at the Orlando International Airport, ERAC. We did about 3,000 car returns a day during peak season. It was such a profitable location that we gave away so much. People living in sports cars, if they have a mid-size rental, free GPSs, etc. Some guy returned a car and said, "Hey, I got a warning light to add wiper fluid, so I went and spent a few bucks and topped it off." My manager gave him $150 off his rental for the inconvenience. He wasn't even mad about having to top off the fluid. He was just letting us know. Another time, we had a family with a full Disney trip booked with young kids late at night. You can tell which families are just kinda barely getting this trip pulled off and aren't really flush with cash. They asked about extending their rental before leaving, and I tried to match their daily rate, and ended up setting their weekly rate as the daily rate. They basically got another week for free. They were insanely grateful, and my manager didn't bat an eye. I do miss that job. That makes my experience with Enterprise make so much more sense. Used to rent from Enterprise a lot, driving around my state doing sales for a brewery. The folks in the location I always used always just asked that I leave a good review. Being in customer service, I of course wanted to help out. I'd also always leave a couple of cases of beer when I returned the vehicle. After the second or third time, they told me to just make a reservation online for the smallest or cheapest car, and then whenever I'd show up, the manager would give me the pick of the lot. Good to know that they have a lot of flexibility at the store level to take care of people. Story 15. I used to work in the floral industry. Don't call a large national florist. Look up a local florist in your recipient's area and call them directly. Most have websites to help you choose, and you'll save money on delivery and service fees, which can go towards a nicer arrangement. Also, unless you order flowers regularly, the membership/loyalty program is a scam and hard to cancel. I called a local place to send flowers for a friend's grandma's funeral. It was in a different state, a small town I'd never been to, etc. The florist was so incredibly helpful, and since it was such a small town, she knew the funeral home and had an idea of the types of arrangements that had already been sent there for this service. She actually recommended that instead of a big bouquet, I send a little garden stone with a poem, and it turned out to be the perfect memento. Trust your local florist. You know what FTD does when they outsource your order and skim their cut off top. I had a family member pass away recently, and the funeral home quoted us $1,400 to have flowers done. Went to a local flower shop and they did it for $700, and the owner was amazing about helping us pick flowers that would be suitable. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you would like to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.